Good afternoon and welcome to our Saturday Sports Special, where we chat with the movers and shakers in sports, including the sportsmen, sportswomen, administrators, coaches, and all others directly or indirectly involved in sports. Well, on this weekend's program, we'll be chatting with sports columnist and veteran sports writer, Mr. Ray Roberts. Well, Ray will join us a little later on for our live segment where he will chat about the state of sports, not just in Grenada, but in the sub-region, that's Grenada and the OECS, as well as a look at West Indies cricket, the recent series against Ireland, and then we have the current series now with England and all the prospects for West Indies. What he thinks about the Skerrett Shallow administration and all that has been involved in West Indies cricket over the past few months, even Afi Fletcher's return to West Indies cricket. And, we'll be chatting and having that personal chat with Ray. Well, Ray has been involved in sports for the better part of 5 decades. Let me put it as 5 decades, and he will be talking about that as well. But however, on our program last Thursday, that was on the 13th of January, you recall we paid tribute to Trinidad and Tobago's the former Olympian Dion Lendo, who died tragically in a vehicular accident in Texas about a week ago. And as indicated in the tributes, one of the coaches or the mentors of Dion Lendo was actually Grenada's Aline Francique. Well, Francique spoke about recruiting Lendo and other athletes during a special tribute on Thursday at the Texas A&M University. Well, we'll hear from an emotional Aline Francique as he paid tribute to Dion Lendo. And following that, we'll stand by for, we'll have some little more interesting tidbits, and then we'll have Ray Roberts coming in after those segments. So let's hear from Aline Francique as he paid a tribute to Dion Lendo.
Shit. I don't know if I can be like Saul, Hi, everybody. My name is Aline Francique. It's Coach Francique. Thank you for coming today to support the amazing life of Dion. If those of you who know me and who know Dion, you know how close we were. This is hard. Like when Coach Henry called me, he said, "Sick, you need to be here." I said, "Okay, when?" He said, "Thursday." I said, "Okay." I met Dion in 2011 when we were recruiting him. Coach came to my office and he says, "We have this young man from Trinidad. He runs the 400 and we got to get him." I said, "Okay." So we started the recruiting process. When he came on the visit in 2011 and I picked him up, I dropped him back off every Sunday, and every Monday coach would come, "What you think?" I said, "We got to get this one. Shit, we got to get him. He's tall, just like me, 400 meters, just like me. We got to get him." So I said, "We got to get him." But he was a young man with many qualities. He was caring, he was dependent, he was courageous, and he loves his family. And to many of you, he was a teammate, he was a mentor, an athlete, a fierce competitor. But to me, he was family, like he was the first athlete that I recruited from the Caribbean. I recruited other athletes from the Caribbean before, but they were in the US. But he was the first one that came from the Caribbean. And since I'm from Grenada and he's from Trinidad, and it's close, I was excited to recruit him because everything I've learned running the 400, I wanted to instill it in him. Everything Coach Henry taught me, I wanted to put it into him. And so that's why we had such a great relationship. Coach Henry and I worked with him. We were good cop, bad cop. Coach Henry was a good cop, I was a bad cop. Like, he told me everything. I know everything about Dion. You hear me? Everything. I know all his secrets, everything. But what surprised me about Dion was his friendliness. And we used to get into it sometimes when he talked to his competitors. And I was used to ask him, I said, what are you doing? I said, man, they're trying to take what you want. Like, you're too nice. We got to be mean. We got to be aggressive. And, and then used to go on the track and took care of business. 2012, I went to London with him. I was there with him in 2012, freshman. And I didn't know if they was going to run him. I know he was going to run the heats, but I didn't know if they was going to run him in the finals. But I was lobbying the whole time. He didn't know. I wanted him to anchor. But I was lobbying with his coaches, like Charlie from back in Trinidad. I was telling Charlie, we got to run him last leg. We got to run him last leg. And when I saw him, I said, what leg you running? Man, I'm running anchor. I was like, good. He said, why? I said, because you compete in the SEC, man. I said, once you could compete in the SEC and anchor relays in the SEC, you could anchor relay anywhere. But with Dion, it's just, I will never say goodbye to Dion, ever. And I have a son, and my son's birthday is the same birthday as his, October 28th. And it's really hard for me, but I just have one request, well, two requests. Fred was supposed to be here, but Fred couldn't make it. And I work with Fred, and I was going to tell Fred that I want to dedicate the upcoming season to Dion. Whenever I feel tired, I must say, think of Dion. Whenever we line up, think of Dion. And to Coach Henry, to keep the legacy going on, I want you to, the 400 meters, I want you to say, this is Dion Lendo, 400 meters. So just do this for me. And this is all I gotta say.
Indeed, an emotional Aline Francisque as he paid tribute to the late Dion Lendo. Well, it was so nice seeing Aline Francisque, and I guess as much folks you're happy as well to see Aline Francisque after so many years and paying tribute to the late Dion Lendo. As you know, Francisque was one of the coaches of Dion Lendo. In fact, he was the person who was tasked in actually recruiting Dion Lendo. And as he indicated, it was his first recruitment directly from the Caribbean. He recruited other Caribbean athletes, but most of them were already in the US. But this was his first pick directly from the Caribbean. And no doubt it was a feat from his his days, and as he indicated, he knew everything about Dion Lendo, and no doubt it was a touching tribute. emotional for Aline Francie to some extent as well. So thank you very much, Aline Francie. Well, folks, as we say, so Ray Roberts will join us a little later on, and we'll have a candid conversation. I know you folks are looking forward to hearing from Ray Roberts. Yes, definitely he will be on, as indicated. But we have some other segments we want to, as we await Ray. And Ray will tell you why his segment is starting a bit late today. When he comes on, he will let you know. But on Thursday, and I know track and field on the minds of lots of sporting fans in the region at this time of the year. Foremost, the Carifta Games. As we know, every year, junior athletes in particular, look forward to the Carifta Games. It's an opportunity for the junior athletes to showcase their athletic prowess, and whether it's track or field, an opportunity for them as well to be scouted by coaches. And we know within the last 2 years what's taken place rather without any Carifta Games, particularly last year with the sudden cancellation of the games in Bermuda. Okay? Well, for 2022, Kingston, Jamaica, the National Stadium in Kingston will stage, hopefully, the Carifta Games. They already started the 100-day countdown. We well into the 100-day countdown, and so far, lots of momentum so far for the Carifta Games. Hopefully, no more disruption. But again, Mr. Mike Sands, the president of the North American, Central American, and Caribbean Athletic Association, has given the assurance that there is somewhat more than 90% possibility of staging the games, because except that we have a similar situation with the COVID-19. So while we wait for Ray, I want to give you 3 segments from Mike Sands. One has to do with the sustainability of the Carifta Games, whether or not we are in a position to sustain the games every year. And then he will also speak about the governments, whether he thinks governments in the region have, seriously consider the importance of the Carifta Games. First, let's hear Mr. Mike Sands regarding the sustainability of the Carifta Games. Here's a question for you, Ryan. That's from Trinidad and Tobago, I can tell you. Sorry if this question was asked before I just got home and logged on. Given the circumstances of the pandemic and the state of the region financially as a result, do you fear for the future of Carifta in the coming years? And what role does NACAC play in fostering governmental support for such events?
But Ryan, the first part of your question is no, I do not fear for the future of Carifta. Quite the contrary. Carifta is the longest running consecutive championship to be had, and by no one other than himself, the former president of World Athletics, Adam Left, Lemaine Diak. He came and he visited Carifta for the first time in the Bahamas, and he made a declaration that the Carifta Games is by far the most competitive and interesting championships by far. Our current president, Sebco, has also indicated, and they now make it the first thing on their calendar to come and be present at the Carifta Games. All of the athletes in our area from 1972, when it first started, I wouldn't say all, but at least the vast majority of our athletes have come through the system from 1972 to the present. And so there's no way that we can see Carifta having a bleak future. And stars are always born at the Carifta. And I don't have to name them for you because we know all of them, most of them, right? And so at the end of the day, our biggest challenge is finances. And it'll be a sad day if Carifta cannot take place because of finances, because that is the investment in our development. And that makes us who we are today as an area, particularly from the Caribbean area. Mm-hmm. And so I think as a part of that, NACAC, we have taken a huge portion of our competition grant that we support the host country, whoever they may be at the time, that we provide. It's never enough, but at least it's a some of our competition grant that we put towards the Carifta Games, because we as NACAC recognize the importance. We also provide any technical support and any other available support that we have to ensure the success of the games.
Mm-hmm. But do you think, and just to follow up on Ryan's question, but do you think that, you know, the governments in the region, they're on the same page as NACAC? They understand, you know, what you're saying?
Mike, and answer your question, I don't think they do. I really don't believe the governments understand the significant impact that Carifta has, because first of all, it's not just a track and field event. It's also an opportunity where the young people, Carifta has become the hotbed of recruiting for USA coaches. And I feel happy to say that I had a role to play in that way back, you know, having been a part of the university system. And when the coaches were talking about going to the Caribbean to recruit, you know, my suggestion was, guys, why go through all that? Make a plan to go to the Carifta Games, and anybody who's anybody, the fellow may not win the 100, but he has another year or two. You want to make that a one-stop shop. And so now the Carifta Games has become the bedrock of recruiting for our kids in the USA system. And so at the end of the day, there's millions and millions and millions of dollars that has been invested in our kids from the region through the universities that give them scholarship. And so if the governments do not look at it as an opportunity for our kids and ensure that it takes place, then it's a sad day.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I would say this much, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this, right? And I would hope that a lot of them would take example from the government of the Bahamas as an example, because unfortunately for us, getting to, and I say us in this context, getting to the Carifta Games is never a problem, because there's the existence of Bahamas here that is provided for that purpose. And mind you, just track and field for swimming. And also when it comes to team levy, so the government of the Bahamas has recognized and appreciate the significance of the development. And if I could speak to governments elsewhere, I would say the same thing. And that please, you know, look at it as an investment and not as a cost. In all honesty, it does fall under our purview. Unfortunately, there's not been an open line of communication to the extent to which, from an official perspective, the General Secretary and I, Keith Joseph, we went to Eugene, Oregon for the USA Track and Field Olympic trials, and we had brief discussions along with our president, Seb Go, who was there for the trials. But unfortunately, NACAC was not as engaged and has not been as engaged as I would like to see us engage as the area association having the World Championship on this side of the continent for the first time. And so, and that's something that I think we need to address, because we are not as engaged, even though, as I said, it's they have an autonomy to do so. But I think it would be good to have the area association a little bit more involved, at least to understand what is happening on a semi-regular basis, if only. But that has not taken place thus far.
But is there still time for some level of engagement?
Well, there's always time. I mean, if only as observers. I mean, you know, it would be good that the area association is sitting to the table as an observer, so that when I'm asked questions as you are asking me now, I'd be in a better position to give an answer and not to give the answer that I'm giving at this moment.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Mike Sands, and that was some segments from our program on Thursday, where he spoke about, and he was very candid about it, spoke about the lack thereof support from regional governments regarding the Junior Carifta Games, you know, the importance of support, and not just government support, support in general, because the private sector has a role to play as well. And I recall having a discussion with my good friend Rudy and Sylvan after that program, and we were speaking on the whole issue of you know, sponsorship, the whole idea of sponsorship. And it's a very complicated issue when it comes to sponsorship in the Caribbean. And we can look at the islands in particular. Let's look for Grenada. When it comes to sponsorship, whether it's sports, whether it's culture, and that instance, carnival, or whatever, everyone goes to basically the same sponsors, the major sponsors, whether it's Digicel, Flow, Coach, you can just name the sponsors that they will go to. So it's very, I could understand how it's very sort of complicated and sophisticated to some extent. And I wonder at times how sponsors themselves, the businesses, private sector businesses, determine who they will sponsor and how they go about sponsoring, and these sort of things. Because, I am certain that as a major company in the islands, that you have probably no fewer than probably 10 requests for sponsorship, on a regular basis, and most times you have to, share the bad news, So I could understand the whole issue of sponsorship. It's not like in the, the other, bigger nations where you have these, corporate bodies, whether it's Toyota, AT&T, and these sort of things. And they have, share markets, So you have network sponsorship, for example. So Toyota's advertisement will be running in X amount of markets. So there's value to that. It's not just, for example, New York or New Jersey, but if it's on network TV, it means it may be going on hundreds of, affiliate stations at the same time. So in terms of market value, it's, lots, millions of people have access to the advertisements, and when you compare that to the Caribbean and things like that. So I could understand sometimes, the delicacy in terms of determining who or what gets sponsorship, So the whole issue of the Caribbean Games and all of that, it's something that I'm certain that folks will be determining. So, folks, as I know you have been waiting, and just like me, have been waiting, and the wait is basically over. I can tell you, for this full disclosure, as you can see, I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I am certain that our good friend is somewhere in, well, I will say sunny, beautiful, sunny, shiny, and I'll hear what our friend will say later on. So once again, folks, well, Ray Roberts joins us again and I'm saying, and I'm being very careful with that, a sunny Grenada, perched on the Calais Ridge, which provides spectacular views of the Morris Bishop International Airport on probably one side, and then the St. George's University on the other end. Let's welcome back our good friend Ray Roberts to our program. And let me see, yes, Ray is here. Let's welcome back Ray to our program. Ray, well, I should say, Happy New Year to you, and I hope all is well for the start of the new year.
Well, thanks a lot, and all is well, I would say. I don't think I could complain. I think I feel as good as at any time in my life. And I want to wish you a Happy New Year. Thank you for the greetings. Wish you, your family, and all your listeners and viewers a wonderful 2022 and beyond. And certainly hope we all can live up to the challenges of COVID and other economic and social, whatever possibilities there may be. So we look forward to a wonderful year of sport, not just in athletics and cricket, but in all sports played in the Caribbean.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you say all sports, because that is a good segue for our first question and discussion aspect. It has to do basically, Ray, with the state of sports in the sub-region. And you can look at Grenada, which probably is no different to probably some of the other islands in the sub-region, meaning the OECS. And certainly you have been following all the developments mainly. And and taking off from 2021, what do you think is the state of play regarding sports in Grenada and the rest of the OECS?
Well, from what I've been following, it seems like the challenges are across the board. You have this periodic period of increases in the COVID numbers, and apart from protocols to be followed, people's fear of either catching the disease, vaccine hesitancy. And then there's the biggest of all, many people have lost their jobs, income, income has been eroded in many cases. So really and truly, a lot of people are at the crossroads. And from my perspective, the comfort in life is when you can manage your resources and feed your family and hopefully satisfy the daily expenses of life. Putting that aside, I would hope that many of us are able to make the adjustments. I mean, that is what is necessary in this stage, because it wouldn't go away, with a strong win or, just hoping it will perhaps take a little while. So I hope that we as individuals can recognize that we have to live with the challenges that exist and pray God and work at it that, at some point in time, things will return to normal. What I'm seeing with sports is that we seem not to be back on track from where we left off in 2019 and early 2020. We seem to be, I'm sure about it, because really there's the first challenge that some of our best sports people, our promising sports people, our talented sports people, among the vaccine hesitant population. So that in itself limits us in terms of the best available talents. Playing fields available, but again, the gatherings that I've seen, particularly in Tantine, it's worrying, and not just Tantine. I mean, it's basically, I've been in Tantine every Saturday, and Michael, Tantine. Tantine is a hub of sport. Saturday, the last 3 Saturdays, I can tell you, the only person who was there was a friend of mine waiting on me to come and take a knock of tennis. The friend had to ask me, what has happened to Tantine? Not even Lester Smith and his people are there. I'm talking about the afternoon. In the morning, Junior Murray has a clinic there, and there's a little athletics and so forth. But the afternoon, between 3, 4, 5, absolutely nobody. I'm seeing that in other smaller playing fields around the country. So that does not augur well. In fact, if you were to take cricket, I have not seen anybody practice a cricket game anywhere around the south or in St. George's. And that's the biggest chunk of the population in Grenada. I have not seen anybody in Tantine except the Junior Murray Clinic, which is basically for kids, academy he runs in the morning. I have not seen anybody of teenage age playing. So, Michael, I don't know how the associations are looking at that challenge, but to me, well, I'll tell you one other thing, Michael, and we were talking about that. A few of us were talking about that. At some point, you will see numbers on the road, people walking and dozens, and they will, at the beach in the morning, people exercising. Michael, I don't go in the morning anymore. I go around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. The only tourists on the beach, the broken tourists on Grenada. No, there's a bubble. So they are having cruise ship passengers by the vendors market. I saw I would say about 100 or more in that little area. But Michael, I'm not seeing young people, not even people your age, in the mid-afternoon running the beach or walking around Montrouge, which is a lovely stretch of walk, or from the airport to Tantine. You're not seeing that gathering. So I think we have a challenge. And a couple of Saturdays I went to Kentucky, and I went there very reluctantly, but I had to go because I had to get food for some young tennis players, table tennis players, who didn't want the normal food. And that in there was the biggest crowd. I mean, there were mothers, there were children. To me, it was an economic boom. So I don't know how sporting association have strategized for 2022. I just came from the Athletic Association annual general meeting. I facilitated the elections. They have elected a new president in Conrad Francis. He was not there. I think he's out of the country, so he was elected unopposed. But Mike, I think associations, the Olympic Committee in particular, the Ministry of Sports, they have to perhaps bring associations together and hopefully, come up with some means of getting people back on track in sports. I know we can't do as normal, but clearly you can run the beach in single file. You can run the park in single file. So there are things that we can do.
Mhm. But Ray, do you think that our sports administrators, those in authority, they are ready for that sort of discussion? They are ready for that sort of are ready to face these sort of challenges?
Well, Mike, the first problem is even the administrators are among the vaccine hesitancy population. I mean, I every day encounter people who disagree with me. I have taken the vaccine. I'm going to take the booster. None of them made me sick. I felt the same way. And I don't know I can say anything bad about it. But Mike, we have less than what? Let's say 40% of the population vaccinated. The unvaccinated is 60%. And that includes people who are coaches, people who are leaders of association. So, Mike, when you have that kind of challenge, and that challenge, as far as I understand, is not just in Grenada. I'm engaging a friend from Trinidad regularly, and he said to me, it's a similar thing across the Caribbean. So, if you have that kind of conflicting situation, views as to how we go about it, clearly, Mike, we're going to have a challenge. I noticed that the GFA took a positive stand that all footballers who want to represent Grenada must be vaccinated. Well, that's going to be uttered, but on the radio, there's going to be controversy, there's going to be all sorts of things. So I'm not too sure, Mike, it is something that we can really say we'll find a holistic approach. Because some good sports people, I mean, I've known of a couple of coaches who are my friends, and they say to me, Ray, I am not taking this thing. There are two other better people in terms of knowledge and coaching and so on, but they're not taking it. So again, how are you going to send a netball team or a basketball team or a football team without, well, you could send it without your best players, and that may be the approach. But again, you're going to be losing people, and I don't see any way out for those who are not vaccinated.
Yeah, well, we are seeing, I mean, and you involved in yourself, you follow tennis, international tennis, and you see what has
That's
happened
my
to,
love.
yeah, and you see what has happened to Novak Djokovic, and even as a star,
A superstar.
yeah, I should say superstar,
Yeah.
and this the number one seeded for the Australian Open, and he had to, exit and most likely banned from Australia for the next 3 years, and the possibility of him not participating even in the French Open as well, right? Because there are strict protocols, and some of these things are now laws in some of those European countries. They're now enacted as laws, and you see in basketball, the New York has taken the stance that you have to be vaccinated to play in any home games, and even their superstar has to, sit on the sideline when the Brooklyn Nets are playing at home.
Right.
So I don't see what sort of exceptions you will have for those in Grenada and other smaller islands when it comes to regional and international sports. Ray. So the thinking behind one, the sportsmen and sportswomen, and then also the sort of influence from the sports administrators. But on that note, Ray, do you think that the whole issue of the COVID and all the variants and things will continue to affect sports in Grenada and the smaller islands?
Well, I think once that vaccine hesitancy is there,
Right.
and I think I will say to you, I'm not too sure we are handling it as we ought to. You see, I'm saying to people, I could understand the urgency that you will want to get people to be vaccinated. But I think the ultimatum in some cases, to me, are creating a resistance, creating stubbornness. And at the end of the day, there will be no winners. I would have preferred to see where we take an approach of using community nurses and others to create little bubbles, as we may want to call it, in some communities where it is particularly where there is great vaccine hesitancy, to work with people and hopefully penetrate as many as possible. But the across the board thing that you're gonna if either you take it or you lose your work or you do this. So I think it's something that for me we didn't handle very well at the start. But I try my best to encourage people because, as I said to people, I have taken, I don't know the amount of vaccines that I've taken. I could remember once I had to go to South Africa. When I reached, they say you can't get on the plane, you must have some kind of thing. I went to the health center because, I had a little time. I took a vaccine. I don't even know what was in it, but I'm living. I don't know, I was crippled or anyway. So I usually tell folks, I don't know this conspiracy about trying to kill the whole world, trying to kill all black people. I don't find that is very intelligent. I mean, some of the religious leaders themselves, I mean, I think I'm reading the Bible much more than I used to. Some of this thing about prophesizing and this and the mark of the beast and the vaccine is that. I mean, there's a whole lot of stupidness. I mean, people have given me chapters to read and I've read it 3 times. I've got people to highlight it for me. I mean, it is sad to see that some people are using their powerful positions, in religion and other areas to really fool the poor and the less fortunate. So I would hope that we could find some balance because, Michael, I cannot see us seriously unearthing the best talents that there are if we have that division. I mean, let's take football. Football, sometimes you find the best players in communities that are poverty stricken. And if they decide, look, I'm not taking the vaccines, you may have others who may be mediocre. So you're losing talents that perhaps could take you to a higher level because that individual has a perception, as I would think he's been misled um, by others who are saying, well, look, it is a vaccine designed to hurt you. So I hope, and Michael, our population is not that great. It's not like, the European or the African countries. There are millions. We have 12,000 people. So if 60% of that number refuses to take the vaccine, Michael, that tells you the story. So I think sports leaders and administrators have to find a way of, I don't know how, I can't give you a description as to how they should go about it, but quite clearly there needs to be a coming together of minds, both the vaccinated minds and the unvaccinated minds, to hopefully keep sports alive, because we don't want to see a decline to the point where Caribbean countries are doing well at the Olympics and all the major sporting events around the world. And if there's this decline now, there's no Windward Island secondary school games for the last 2 years. This year look like we may have a third. So that in itself, you take away from young people who will be given that exposure at an early stage. That's what Kirani and others had. So we need to bring back these events, and we have to find a way of working together to bring it back, to bring them back.
Yeah, well, and speaking about that, Ray, well, we heard from Mr. Mike Sands, the president of NACAC, North American, Central American, and Caribbean Athletic Association, that the Carifta Games, there is a possibility, the probability rather, of 90+% of taking place this year in Jamaica. Well, Guyana should have been the host this year, but they had withdrawn from hosting, so Jamaica picked up the slack. We knew what happened last year in Bermuda. Within the last few weeks of the games, then it was called off. And hopefully that once everything flows, Jamaica will be able to successfully host the games. The importance of the Caribbean Games. You just spoke about the Windward Island secondary school games, for example, very important for the young sportsmen and women of school age in the Windward Islands. What's about intercall championships and other sporting events, school-based sporting events in Grenada, Ray?
I think they should be staged. I think we have to stage them not as extravagant as we did in the past. Now, I was saying to one of the officials, look, I think perhaps the best way out, we have to have it without spectators because we don't want the clustering. But maybe we could have one day for the sprints, a second day for the middle distance runners, and a day for the throwers and jumpers. I think not to have anything this year would be really would really be a disaster for sports, because it means that, look, Mike, you would have been in Form 3, you are without competition. Form 4, Form 5, you are without any activity, and clearly you could lose interest, and that talent perhaps might have been a character games, might have been a scholarship to one of the colleges in the United States, something of the sort. And we lose that. So I think we should have these events, including the secondary school games individually, not elaborate, restricted to maybe having, the preliminaries on as a build-up. So you just have finals. But I would think really and truly to go without it for a third year. And you know how life is in the Caribbean, Michael. I mean, we lose people every year, and some of our best people in terms of skills and commitment to the United States and other countries. And, these people help to motivate others to carry on. And I think it's important that we find some way of staging some of these events. I mean,
Well,
schools, I would say the same thing too.
yeah, well, and as you indicated, these events have been an opportunity for our young men and women to gain scholarships in some instances, Ray. And with the situation as it is now, economic situation, sports is one of the avenues that they can use to at least, better themselves to some extent. And certainly, I support and your call that at least some form of competition be held among those. Let me just, some of your good friends, Ray, saying good morning to you as well. Leslie McQueen saying good
Okay.
morning, Michael, and a pleasant welcome to my friend Ray. And I'm certain, Ray, you know that the folks like Leslie McQueen, when he was back in Grenada, cricket in St. David, for example, something we want to talk about, the local sports, the village sports in particular. And not forgetting another good friend of yours, Lincoln Toro Deputy. He said the only good part of the regional people that's not vaccinated is West Indies cricket. Would have a perfect excuse for the perpetual losing streak. The best players are not vaccinated, and something again we will talk about coming up. And Eugene Licorice is saying we should really try to have the games. Yes, Eugene, Lincoln Toro, and Leslie McQueen. Good afternoon to you all three, and all those who are listeners as well. Ray, so. And I'm glad Leslie is one who has played village cricket, and I know on our previous programs you have called for and you have lamented the fact or the lack thereof of that sort of cricket. Years gone by, there isn't a weekend without that sort of sporting activities taking place, which brought communities together, whether in St. David and particularly in St. Andrew, Ray. Do you think that the current situation with COVID also presents an opportunity for more of that? While people may not be able to move as freely and to move to where they want and things like that. So there's an opportunity for people to stay in their communities, and we have more community sporting events, especially cricket and football.
Well, the good news we have is that St. David's has started its parish competition today. There are just 6 teams, but it's a great start. Rafael Cooney spoke to me Thursday to tell me, look, Ray, we're starting a T20 tournament. It's not perhaps the right thing to bring back cricket, but we starting something. So I think that is wonderful news because that's the first parish event I'm hearing for the season. And I would hope it can grow. I know people as Leslie have been very much in support and contribute towards that kind of activity. So Leslie, you can take note of that one. Today sees the start of the St. David's T20 competition. 6 teams, small, but it's a start, and I hope it grow from strength to strength. And Mike, you are right, because I think village sport is what is missing in Grenada. I think we have copied something very foolish that we really not ready for. Franchise sports. I mean, people seemingly believe that what they see in the United States with basketball and football and whatever, they can just take it and bring it to Grenada. So we have destroyed club sports, community clubs, to create this, I call it facade, that you can take 2 people from St. Andrew, 2 from, and create a strong team, win, but then that team really and truly represent who? Not a village, just a group of individuals who are the best players coming together. I think we have to discourage that. That is useless. That makes no intelligent sense. Yes, the winner will celebrate and feel that he has done something great, and the news will make it, well, fantastic. But to me, that is the most dotish thing that I've seen in Grenada sports and in Caribbean sports. It does not make any sense because what it does, it reduces the community, well, not a community, 1 or 2 people to shopping around for players from all about Grenada. Then I notice we have something we call transfer. It's $100 or $200. Anybody could take from their pocket and buy 2 players from any parish and create a team. Michael, that's not helping our sports. I usually say to people, you think the British system of Lancashire and Yorkshire and the football of Tottenham, they are 100 and something years old. I don't know that they destroy it and create new things that really and truly don't be anything. It's a good flash in the pan that one team dominates. But I think, Mike, I hope that the COVID, make us rethink some of the things that we have copied from abroad and recognize that some of the things we had yesteryear, we could maybe restructure it. But some of it, particularly the club structure, well, Toro will know that. I mean, Caronade was a united group of people from a community. Leslie would know the same thing. Eugene will know that. SAS was all SAS. And we were happy to confront SAS, and SAS was happy to confront whoever came from St. George's. So we need to find ways to bring back some form of stabilization at the community level. That franchise thing we're trying to invest in, that's a waste of time. That's not doing anything. In fact, most of the people in this thing, they have no connection to communities. They're not in any club. They do nothing other than a group of men together or women for that particular purpose.
Well, let's hope, Larry, that we'll hear more from our sports administrators as they continue to battle with the challenges faced by the COVID. Leslie saying that's a great initiative. Hope the other parishes will follow suit. And I would say that, yes, a great initiative and probably something, as you say, not the best, but at least something that can stimulate the interest and probably hoping, and I'm referring to the St. David's T20 competition, I guess as much as just to whet the appetite and hopefully that they can have a more formal structure in terms of, more cricket is needed. I know, again, you have been lamenting the fact, where we will go on to West Indies cricket, that not enough cricket is being played, and probably among the reasons why we are seeing that poor performances among our regional cricketers. We will have probably the most talented, as they'll say, in world cricket, but yet for the results do not show that way. And I think you continue to lament the fact that it's because of the lack of cricket being played in the territories.
Mike, I would hope that I noticed today Red Spurs sent out something from the Ghana Cricket Association where they have initiated a program among primary and secondary schools, and they want to talk with the Ministry of Education in Ghana so they can have some time on Fridays that they could create more activity for cricket. I read it and I thought it was at least eye-opener coming from Ghana. I would hope we do the same thing in Grenada. Because, Mike, I am saying to you, if England whitewash West Indies in the Caribbean in both the T20s and the Test matches, the only team coming to West Indies is a team coming to play one Test match. I mean, you see when they go to Australia, they go play in Silver Spring or Hobart. They're not going into the main grounds anymore because you're not bringing any spectators. So I think we have got to take note that, yes, we have all these great cricketers of the past. They do academies, they do camp. That's not going to develop cricket by itself. These fellas need to, when I say these fellas, our administrators need to begin to invest like athletics does. In normal times, up to 2018, you will see about 105 athletic meets in Grenada, pre-primary. We're counting them. Primary, secondary, just about every playing field, there is something to do with athletics, Lyman Spoon. That's where it starts. I mean, you go to Queen's Park, you see 20 cricketers, you don't know who picked them, and they say they're on trials. I mean, yes, we have a wonderful young investment in Teddy Bishop, but as I say to people, I would have been surprised if we beyond the first round, got into the second round. Where is the competition? I've been around for a while. Michael, you from St. George's, Leslie, you know, St. David's. St. David's had about 14 teams. One season, a bowler in St. David's before he plays in the parish might bowl about 400 overs. He might bat about 15 to 20 innings. You're not having that in Grenada these days. All you see, a group of fellas, they go on trials. There is a 2-day match, and then he's up to wherever the competition is. How could a cricketer who is nurtured in that form beat anybody from Australia or India, where you have the Castle Cup in South Africa? You have a long list of matches, the Sheffield Shield in Australia, the Ranji Cup in India. I mean, so we have to find a way that when a player is selected for Grenada, by the time he gets there, he would have bowled about 500 overs, 1,000 overs, bat about 20 innings. So he shows at least he has worked on a play. He's not looked upon by coaches and assume that is a good investment. Because you may look very good in the net, but when you get out there, you and the bowler, that's a different environment, completely different thing.
Yeah.
In all sports.
Yeah, certainly. Well, Toro is actually saying we have to try to get more of our sportsmen and women actually training and spend less time watching the professionals on TV, hoping that the talent and skills of the pros will somehow rub off on them by simply watching them on TV. He further stated, as starting a petition for Mr. Deacon in appointing his cabinet a prime minister to make Raymond P. Roberts the minister of sports. Leslie, I need you and Bascom to sign this petition. And on a serious note, Harold Pisony is saying, Raymond Phillip, my eternal friend, after holding on with hope in the rich legacy of West Indies cricket, I am afraid we may not have the institution called West Indies cricket anymore in the not too distant future. Ray, and as Harold stating that, I want to ask you in sequence though, are you happy with the Skerritt shallow leadership?
Well, Mike, I say to people, the first problem you have in cricket in the Caribbean, and in most of maybe Barbados exception, and Jamaica perhaps, you look at the affiliates and the people who are elected. You ask yourself, I mean, really, are they doing anything that nurtures cricket in their home territory? Because the first criteria to being a good administrator, and to being a good politician, if I am still one, or if I want to be one. You have to show work at home. Toro could tell you, when we went Miami-Dade, we were already trained by Patrick Smichaels in Radio Free Grenada, and we all became editors of the newspaper. We didn't apply, we didn't put push-up, We wrote stories, we cover stories, and the dean of the faculty saw it and saw that he had talent that he never knew. So I'm saying to you, Shallow and Skerrett, they will only bring something to the table if you came from something that was functioning. I'm not too, look, I hate saying that. I'm doing this is no disrespect to you. I think you're a wonderful person. But take Grenada cricket. I mean, there's nothing happening. There's nothing happening. So the point I'm making, you go back to the Walter St. John era. I mean, there was all about the country. Rupert John in the Western League. You had activities. To me, what this whole thing is about now is academics writing reports which no one reads. Trust me on that. Nobody reads it. And continuing to human resources. And I mean, Michael, the first challenge at the West Indies Cricket Board is to go to their affiliates and make sure that they work with whoever is the leadership to make sure something is happening. But I am not seeing anything happening. I mean, I follow cricket across the island. That's the one thing, cricket, athletics, and football. And the same thing I say with netball. I mean, Jamaica is top of the world now, but you look at what's happening across the island. I remember in the late 60s, 70s, we had how many? 29 teams, A, B, and C, 3 divisions. Today, 7 teams, they play one wrong and the national team pick. I mean, come on, Michael. You're not going to be, it's really what you're having is just, to me, it's like a fashion show. So we have to have administrators who are working in the territory, who are showing initiative, who are demonstrating in this COVID period, they can make miracles. And then you'll get good administrators at the West Indies level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and so continuing on that, then, do you think that the Desmond Haynes-led selection panel could or should make a difference?
Well, Haynes is involved. I think if you look at Barbados has the best organized domestic league in the Caribbean. I know Trinidad would rival that, but you listen to Barbados, the radio station carry domestic highlights, the TV carry domestic highlights, the newspapers, which are more frequently with because of the technology, they do the same. I think he certainly would be more connected perhaps than his predecessor. But really and truly, Michael, to be fair with you, whether you fire Roger Harper, you bring Viv, Mike, nothing different. Mike, there's just not enough cricket in the Caribbean. I mean, at one point, I could have mentioned a player before he is selected for Barbados because I've listened to their sport and the frequency. I could remember Telson Payne. I mean, I follow this guy on the Barbados Sports News, constantly scoring runs. St. Vincent, I used to listen to Mike Findlay, and you constantly follow, the younger players. Today, you basically don't have sports. I mean, the West Indies is playing, and you turn on to the station, and you don't even get the scores. So, Michael, it's a lot more has to happen. It's just not the administrators. I mean, a lot more must happen for sports in the Caribbean. We must find people like yourself, Paisadi, who, for whatever reason, wanted to broadcast on sports, wanted to cover sports. You're still covering sports. I don't know if you made $1 million yet. I know Toro's on Wall Street, so perhaps he has done that, but I'm still broken. And I've noticed Harold remains the last diehard from Grenada, he and Betty Ann on West Indies cricket. I haven't given up, but I mean, I've basically surrendered.
I love that. You haven't given up, but you
No,
surrendered. All
that's
right.
it. Yeah.
Let me get some comments. Torres said, Harold, the only Caribbean man to save West Indies cricket is Uncle Jack Warner. Hate him or like him, Uncle Jack is the region's greatest sports administrator. He will shake up things and wouldn't be afraid to drop two F bombs on the players. And Harold is saying, grassroots cricket at all levels in all categories across the region must be the nursery to feed West Indies cricket. This is almost dead. What does that say about West Indies cricket? It will be dead too. Big names as coaches and managers are inconsequential. The nursery is dead. Ray, you agree?
Well, yes, there's no doubt about it. In all sports, if you don't have a nursery, nothing will happen. I say to people, look, go back to your ministers of sports. The Roy St. John and who's the other? Basil Matthew. That's the name I always try to remember, Basil Matthew. He was a Barbadian, but he was Minister of Sports in Grenada in Gary government. I mean, those are people passionately wanting to move cricket. I don't get the impression that the prime ministers and them who talk a lot and is perhaps I don't know why we broadcast the excerpts on cricket, because really and truly they are empty. I mean, we have spoken to the point where we were calling for the retirees, the legends as we call them, to get involved. I haven't seen in Grenada case we have brought a legend to Grenada. I mean, Junior Murray is here. Well, Rawl is outside. Yes, we have Devon Smith. But I'm saying, have we made any attempt to say, well, look, West Indies Cricket Board, we go in 50-50 with you. We want a legend, a Gordon Greenwich, whoever they are, to work in our territory, to inspire our people, to inspire our coaches. I remember as a little boy, I was going back to school, what it is. I think Sir Frank came in Tantine. Everybody wants to see who is he. I don't know that is not, the appearance of superstars. I think that still has an impact. So I'm saying, Mike, we need to do a lot more than what we're doing. Yes, we need, to invest, but we need to bring in the superstars as the Sir Viv Richards or whoever they are, not just to go and do a camp, but to help each island inspire not just the players, but the parents and others in the sport. That is, Michael, that 30 seconds. And told me, see, that is Uncle Gary Boy. When we came last in the Winter Island tournament, I think in 71 or something like that, cricket, Gary called a meeting and he said, he had Crony and Hobson, not Crony, Hobson and Crony went to Algova. The point I'm making, he did show some kind of appreciation that it can't remain so. He has to take it beyond where it is. I'm not seeing anything happening in any cricket across the particularly the windwards. Yes, you have a few stars. St. Lucia has a sporting school or college or something like that. But I mean, that's not really producing as yet. So we need to find ways to use the Lara and whoever it is as Butcher worked in Grenada. Butcher, who played for England, he did a stint in Grenada. I think for about
That's Roland Butcher?
Yeah, he did a stint in Grenada. In fact, he hit the biggest six. I remember in Tanti. He was playing for Dauntless. He and Trevor Tweed, the late Trevor Tweed, to a batting. Hit a six right across the road. So we need to do things like that. Clearly, it won't fix cricket, but at least it creates an incentive that I am touching base with someone who I've heard about, who I've perhaps seen. So there are things we can do. And COVID may be providing the opportunity for us to sit back and rethink what we are doing. I must say, Michael, I think we could learn a lot from track and field. I mean, track and field across the Caribbean, well, I know in Grenada it continues to blossom. In Jamaica, you've seen it in Barbados, in Trinidad. You've seen constant flow of athletes. And these athletes didn't come from the sky. They came from programs that were organized by the people who administer athletics. And I think cricket and football and tennis and netball can learn from them. We must have more activities that would keep our sports people and administrators on their toes, not just when an event to travel comes.
Um, here is one. The abnormalities we are witnessing in our twilight years is not only specific to cricket, it is a pandemic of enormous proportions in all areas of disciplines that no bush can cure or vaccine can remedy, only through commitment. And Ray, there is a question to you from Harold. What is the state of the Grenada Olympic Committee in light of the Charlie George's resignation?
Well, I would assume that we have not heard any, let's put it this way, there's no program that has been outlined in terms of public involvement, but they are functioning. I know from a table tennis perspective that they are functioning. I would trust that the leaders who are there are conscious that they are the cheerleaders in Grenada in terms of sports. They are the ones that national federations will be looking to, and therefore they will have to show leadership. Charlie was a disciplinarian, that's for sure. He was one of the disciplined people in sports and one of the thinkers. I mean, you may have, your own thoughts on him, but I worked with Charlie from, since the 70s. I remember him. He was, way above me in terms of he was the secretary. I was just one of these fellows from Grenada who happened to be part of the Athletic Association because of PYO. We were affiliates. And he was, in my opinion, one of the thinking leaders who followed what the international standards were and hope and implemented them as much as possible at the local level. So I hope that the acting president or the president to be Cheney would see it in that light. But without a doubt, Michael, there is need for greater leadership at this time because, as I said to you at the start, you have a challenge, and that challenge is greater than ever. That challenge is that you only have 40% of the population vaccinated, 60% not. And the 60% might very well be the area where you have the greatest talent. So you have to find a way of bringing some kind of, remedy. How it will come, we have to sit and discuss it. But we certainly cannot go forward with 40% and exclude 60%.
Here is one from Toro. The West Indies still produce decent young cricketers like Grenada's own Teddy Bishop, and that's the under 19. The question is why we cannot be consistently competitive at the senior level. It doesn't seem to be talent. In my opinion, other cricketing nations have created a formula for winning at modern international sports, which include a lot of off-field and mental preparation. And that's where West Indies cricket at the senior level seems to be failing. No longer can you expect success by picking a set of fellas. Ray?
Well, I would tell Toro that may be true, but the first problem you have is that if you're not playing at home, all the mental and all this training will mean nothing. You have to, first of all, be familiar that a cricket match game is 6 or 8 hours, whatever the time is, 6 hours, 2 hours a session. So you have to become familiar with that. Secondly, you can't bat in a test match playing T20 cricket. So I think that we have a lot of downsides. We have not had a 2-day competition in Grenada. At least I have not known of any between 2018 and now. All I hear is T20 and 30 overs or 35 overs. Toro, you can't. The Sheffield Shield in Australia is 4 days. The Ranji Cup is 4 days. The Castle Cup is 4 days. The British County Championship is the same thing. There are 18 teams in the British County Championship. It means one player could play as many as how many matches? 17 matches in 1 year. And if he bats in all 17 matches, that is 34 innings. And if he bowls, he could bowl 34 times. Tell me where that exists in Grenada. That exists in Barbados, as I said, Jamaica, they have a bit. But you cannot find quality cricketers even though you have all the what Toro has mentioned. There has to be, look, I will use table tennis. I remember during Dennis Thomas and them days, and even a little passes days, Bobby Rahman days, we had team tournaments. I was telling them young ones, I could bring the record and show them. Played about 30 matches in one half of the year while we had team tournaments. So there was about 6 or 7 teams. We used to play Carronage too. And you got an opportunity to play team matches, which is different from singles. Because sometimes you are the number one player and you have to win all your matches. Hopefully the other people could win one each. So it gives you the opportunity to apply yourself and to be more strategic. Now, even singles, you just go, you could win or lose. That don't put the pressure on you. And sometimes you have the attitude that you can't win. Same thing applies in cricket. You must have a number of local games under your belt, like the GFA. The GFA, they have the Premier League. So at least you have 10 Premier League clubs and you play each other twice. So you have 18 matches. We must see that at cricket at the domestic level in each of the islands. If that is not occurring, whatever you could do, you could bring the best psychologists, you could bring whoever they are. The results will be the same because you must look. Teddy Bishop, I usually tell guys, and my good friend Lai always asks, he said, Grenada really has some special God given talent. See, I never hear about this guy yet. I'm living in Tantine area. Never seen. In the days, as he tell you, Doc Teeth Concons in time and Sampa, somebody would have seen him and mentioned him. And you would go and see him. And you would have an opinion too, or maybe get a chance to talk to him. Where is that happening now? So we have to face the reality. We have to organize domestic leagues. Michael Yu from Tong, the basketball, Backstreet Court. Toro knows that too, the Backstreet basketball court. That was constantly active competition with Papa Plug on them. Well, now they haven't had a basketball tournament national for the last 2 years, COVID. There's always in Guelph. There's sometimes in Victoria. So congratulations to people like NACA who recognize that you have to keep domestic activities going. You can't just pick people and call it a camp and lectures. That ain't going no way. Lectures don't win matches. You have to be able to concentrate on the field.
Ray, there are some comments here. Ray, West Indies is like a picker in the foot. Yet I already booked my flight to see them get humiliated in Grenada. Is it an addiction? And there's one, whichever Mitchell is seated, Ray must be given a bench to sit on at the table to help those suffering from sports bulimia. And another of your good friend, the great Tony Julian, the legend, is listening, and he says, greetings, Basco and Ray. Comments on the following, please. The wonderful rise of swimming as a sport in Grenada. The growth of it being significantly facilitated for swimmers participating in competitions the world over, and Grenada hosting swimming competitions. Also, the possibility of the return of boxing on a competitive level. Once upon a time, competitive boxing was the pride of Karakou. I'm certain, Ray, you'll want to say good afternoon to your good friend, Tony Julian.
Tony, Happy New Year. Good to see you. Well, Mike, let me put it this way. I was secretary of boxing, and I served for about 78 years. So I think I could talk a lot about boxing. In fact, I saw somebody post not too long ago, and told, remember that one too, and Harold, I think Harold might have been a commentator. Joe Bell, he was fighting a fella, I can't remember the fella name, but that was during the PRG era. And I sure there might have been about 3,000 people in Queen's Park. The fight didn't make, I don't think it made, I think it might have lasted for about a round or two. But such was the interest. Again, I noticed, I hope that the internal ring, the internal battle in boxing can be solved, because I think that's an easy sport that, we can find talent always and we can develop. Now, swimming has done some good work. The challenge I would say in swimming Michael and you would agree with that. And I doubt you can produce a swimmer of world-class standard in Grenada. It's not that you don't have the talent, but you know that the Chinese, the Americans, the Germans, the whole world that top the leaderboard in swimming, you know what they go through. I mean, you're just not going to produce one of them in the Caribbean just like that. So yes, we have a lot of work to do, but again, it goes back to the commitment. I think a gentleman or somebody mentioned about passion and commitment. We don't seem to find administrators that to me, yes, you have administrators. Many of them may have, a lot of academic knowledge, but I don't see administrators of a Roy St. John. I'd mentioned Basil Matthew, who will take the time themselves and go and help to strengthen the community, motivate people in rural areas to be part of sport. I mean, it's good to be making lovely speeches and, being able to represent Grenada abroad well and hold office. But quite clearly, we need to see people like Vida, who used to be one of those people. I could talk about it because, she used to be on my Sports Saturday program, going around the country on Saturday and coming back and highlighting what might have taken place, whether it's in St. Patrick's and Andrew. So, I always mention Key Joseph too, one of those people who I remember during the PRG year used to go to villages and stage athletics meet and being able to highlight talent. And even George Goatee Robinson, they were people who journeyed around the island and tried to push the sport as much as possible. So we need a lot. I know times have changed, but again, Michael, without volunteerism, you won't have the resources to pay everyone. Volunteerism should not die in sport or in life.
Yeah, but we do have some more, lots of comments coming in. I'll just take one here. It would be nice to bring back the local village road races. That's from Eugene Licorice. And Ray, talking about volunteerism and the whole issue of volunteering, we have seen within the past few weeks, we have lost a few of our stalwarts in sports. We speak of Chunks or Capitan is one. And then we also had just a few days ago, like Lyndon Dikoto, the brother of Leon Dikoto, and also the father of three outstanding, in the sense that they represented Grenada. He had Janelle and Joel Redhead. They both Olympians themselves, former Olympians, represented Grenada World Championships and Olympics. And then they had Jonel Redhead, who played youth football, under 17 and under 20 football. Again, their father played for St. John Sports Uprising Roots and was a volunteer himself, just like Capitan. They will always be at sporting events officiating as a volunteer. Ray, I certainly will want to take the opportunity to pay tribute to some of these stalwarts, including there's another one from, I think it's St. John as well.
Yes, that's correct. And we certainly was going to mention his name before everybody else.
Yeah.
That is M.O.E. Moe, they used to call him Joseph. He was Grenada's bodybuilding champion. I can't forget him. I'll give you a joke before I say anything else. I went to go out with Fly, and I went to his home. And in talking with him and so forth, I noticed, a lot of wonderful things. So I say, Fly, this man is a millionaire. So Fly call him and say, Ray, you're a millionaire. So he said to me, Ray, multiply 500 pounds of tuna by $5 and see what you get for a year. Yeah, he says, you understand that? 5,000 pounds of tuna by $5 and see how much your multiplication bring. So he was making that joke with me, and Ken Joseph, who was president of bodybuilding, reminded me that he was not only Grenada champion, he was Woodward Island champion too of bodybuilding. And he was also one of the leading fishermen in golf who, for whatever reason, never gave up on golf. So certainly we want to express our condolences to his family and to the many people who, he served in the capacity of bodybuilding champion and promoter for Grenada. Yes, I really felt saddened when I heard about Lyndon's passing because the Dakota family involved, I mean, we all were familiar with Leon.
Leon, yeah.
And our good friend from Happy Hill School there. The other
Leon Francis. Yeah.
Ben Johnson.
Yeah, Ding.
Right. They were two fantastic athletes. I mean, they give in the call to me the lift that really continues today. They were both 100-meter sprinters, and it was just happening after the Ben Johnson, era. So you're correct. They served us well, and may their souls rest in peace there. St. John's, to me, I consider St. John's perhaps the parish of the best talents in Grenada. I mean, it bothers me that, well, not bothers me. I'm fascinated to just about everything we talk about in Grenada seems to have a St. John's connection in terms of sports of success. You go back, you look at Naka's book, and you look at some of the names that perhaps still people my age and older can remember. They seem to have had some kind of a connection to St. John's, and in particular athletics. Yes, we won't forget the Eugene and others from St. Andrew, but to me, St. John's always seems to have exceptional talent, whether in cricket, football, athletics, exceptional talents.
Well, so Ray, so seeing as you speaking about the the success rather of the sports in the parish of St. John, then do you think therefore that there should be some emphasis on the revitalization or the reviving of parish sports committees, for example? I know it was something that the opposition National Democratic Congress was trying to do when they were in government regarding a sports policy, etc., etc. But and it had that whole issue of the sports parish sports committees, the parish councils. That's what I was trying to get to. Because it seems, therefore, that for some reason, the success of sports in the parish of St. John lies in the whole issue of the parish sports council.
Well, there's merit in it because it's still the only council that is functioning. Garvin Taylor, I was speaking to him. I was in a funeral there in December, and Garvin was also one of the bodybuilders at the time of Mayor Joseph here. I would think that there's merit for it. I mean, I would hope sometimes we keep the politics away and not, and not see that it was done by this government and this party and that kind of, because sometimes you rid yourself of people who are the people who are most passionate about getting the things done. So I know sometimes to me, when they rid themselves of the parish council, allow them to die, I think the politics might have played a part. But Garvin Taylor is a fella, but he's like me. I really not carried away by politics. Absolutely not carried away by politics whatsoever. So himself and people like Naka were conscious enough to keep it going. I would hope that we all see the wisdom in it because, look, they have basketball. They had, even during COVID, they had I'm not too sure it was tiny mice, but whatever, they had a basketball tournament, restricting it and following the protocols. They were able to do a football. So they do things that other parishes that do not have a parish council, a sports council, really don't do. So there is need for us to see how we can make these things work. Again, if there are clubs in the parishes, then the club should be the ones with the support of the, I would say, even the Olympic Committee and the Ministry of Sports, try to be of support to them because clearly they're going to need some kind of financial support to keep things going. But I agree with you, Mike, there's a need for sports council because let's take going back to cricket again. cricket is the sport that perhaps give our people the greatest opportunity to, apart from athletics, to be on the world stage. And we are allowing cricket to die, although we have all built stadium and stadia that are very expensive. So I think, we need to sit back now and say, look, how could we make these things work? Do we need to find talent to work in the rural areas and do like Barbados do in cricket? During the cricket season, the sports council there, they employ dozens of former cricketers are capable coaches to work with primary schools and villages. So at least to me, that's why Barbados has continued to remain vibrant in West Indies cricket. I mean, you look at the team, there are more Bajans on the team than any other nationality. And that's not by chance, because they perhaps play the most cricket. So I would say, Michael, that it is something, again, I'm not too sure, and I'm not taking knock at anybody in any ministry, but again, I wonder if we have the personnel like we had when I came in. There were people like Big Clouden who were passionate about sports. He was also a well-educated person. Then you had people like Keith Joseph who had the same passion. And then you had the Blundell Church, Cecil Greenwich, and Vida, who people like that who really wanted to push sport. So I'm saying, I don't know if we have that kind of people in the ministry again, but we need to see people like that. I mean, reincarnation or finding them, I don't know how you'll find them, but without that, the momentum is going to continue to decline.
Ray, well, staying with the St. John, I think, and this seems to be Clef, Deputy said, Ray, why you think we decided on 3 deputy in streets up there? That's it.
None is true. I sure about that. None is true.
And Edwin Sam, your good friend Edwin Sam in New Jersey, said, Ray, sorry I'm late. He came on a while now, but he said, sorry I'm late. And if we don't speak, no one will listen. So keep plowing. And Ray, the depot here, I will have to send you or Toro to speak to the speaker, because the boys say he complaining they're making too much noise in his head at Old Trafford. Your good, that's the president of the Senate. That's your good friend.
He's getting old. He's getting old. That's what I think. He will hear the noise very soon.
All right. Let me take some more comments there. Coaches can coach, but in the middle, players must be able to adjust minute by minute. Sending a team full of fast bowlers and big hitters slamming sixes will only get you so far with a win here and there. There's another one here from Toro. For Carnage United FC, we always considered St. John as our second home. We had great friends and a wonderful following in St. John. As for Capitan, the GAA and the GOC have to do everything to give him a decent send-off. In 2019, on his own initiative, Capitan met me during a visit to Grenada and told me he wanted me to work on something for him. He wanted all starters at track and field games to look uniform. Hence, he was looking for a donation of red T-shirts and red caps. Ray, I think you had to mention something about Capitan.
Yeah. Yes, well, I did an article which I published actually.
I saw it in the Grenadian Voice, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I consider him to be one of the most passionate volunteers in my time. I first came across Capitan in the early, well, let me put it this way. When I came to town to school, I remember Capitan used to be not Intercall, with Sentai. That's the first time I saw it. Because we had entered a team from Granans. We didn't win any event, but we had fellas like Bob Hagley and Royston Henry and others. Royston is who you call Panty. He was very much flashy, we may say show off, but likable. And that friendship grew over the years. And I can't say anything other than positive things about Capitan. I mean, Capitan, I remember when we used to have sports meet in Montrouge during the 70s. And Ellis Maitland, I saw him a couple days ago, and he reminded me, We remember these meet. That's where I started. So I'm telling you, there were good people coming out of it. Capitan was there to serve a starter. I mean, we never had a lot of money, so there was no payment and there was little or no refreshment. There might have been some lime juice or gospel juice because we weren't affluent in those days to have, juice in bottle and so forth. So somebody might have come with a pot or a bucket and, serve a little bit of sandwich with red butter. And Capitan has continued on that, on that part. I remember I used to go to Grenville, Peter Blair's St. Andrew's Eastern Games, and I'm talking about the 70s now. Capitan was there, in modern times, in, the last 10 years or so. Yes, he might not have been as he was in the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, but Capitan was really one of those revered people who was absolutely passionate about sports. One of the things I can recall, when I started sports in Radio Grenada, and he came in as a driver, he was the only driver that I could have held up at Queen's Park for 10 minutes. The others, you couldn't blame them because they never pitched a marble. In fact, I remember Patrick Smichaels, who was the news director, instructing one of them to go back and get me because I was trying to get the scores in the sports. And he felt I was holding him up. So Capitan also, Michael, sports 7 o'clock. So you have to go down to prepare it at 6 o'clock. Capitan would call you. In those days, no cell phone. You had to get a landline. So you go by Mr. Lacret, calling the scores, whether it's football or whatever it is. So he, to me, was one of the unsung heroes. And maybe, Pangalang is the next one, as I tell folks. I will never, ever forget Pangalang. Sometimes I pass in the Fontana area and I see him sitting by the road and I have people in the car. And I usually tell people, boy, I could never forget this man. I remember this man being one of the vanguards in athletics in officiating. Mm-hmm. I mean, constantly, repeatedly, not one sport in primary, secondary, intercall, as well as with St. games. These guys have served us well. And I hope one day perhaps we can document their service or their contribution. Because there are people like myself and I suppose Clever and Toro and others, Harold, who could at least say a couple of things because we have seen them perform.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have some more comments that coming in there, Ray, but there's one that I have there that I want to ask you about. And it's personally, Ray, after more than 5 decades in the profession, and for some, you are considered retired. That not you. For some people, they consider you retired. What is keeping you going to continue to write sports? Where does the desire lie? I mean, what keeps you going?
Mike, let me tell you this. I told people that I was very privileged to see people like Tony Rennick play tennis. And I remember I always tell people, Richie was around 16, 17, maybe 16. Tony might have been in his late 40s. And I recall that tennis match in Tantine that they played. Richie was young and energetic and everybody wanted him to win. And Tony won that match. Tony was maybe almost 3 times his age. And I said to people, that has lived with me. I also saw Tony play Jerry Date. Jerry had won the first 2 sets. No, I think Tony won the first, Jerry won the next 2. And Tony was battling to survive the fourth. He came back and he won it, and he won the 5th because Jerry bunt. Now I say to people, these are the things that have inspired me. And whether you like it or not, the one thing I could say that I admire about Prime Minister Keith Mitchell is his tenacity to keep fit. I've always had that in me. People who just Roy St. John, I remember in his 80s, he walked from wherever he lived in town there to Granada's Beach. And there was another person, Mr. Chichester. I remember he and Dennis Henry. I used to go on the beach. We didn't have no pipe, so you have to go to the beach to bathe in the morning. Lived about 200 meters from the beach. So you bathe, you go to the beach, you take a swim, and when you come back, the grandmother or whoever it is stick some carbolic soap and they bathe you down when you go to school. And these fellas were running the beach. And I remember the late Sir Dennis Henry tell me, young man, first of all, he said, what's your name? I say, Ray. You see, Ray, you're doing the right thing. 'Cause every morning I see you, say, Ray, keep going, keep going. Now, for me, there is no getting old. You have to accept that you will deteriorate. You have to accept that young people will take over. I'm not competing with anyone. I don't want to walk in life again. I am enjoying the beach, tennis, church, talking, volunteering. If you want me to do something, I'll come and do it. If you may wish to offer a stipend, you may do it. But I'm not looking for a work. So I usually tell people that for me, and I'm not carried away by money. I am comfortable to keep healthy. So Mike, there's no retirement in my case, but there's the understanding that I wouldn't be young as Toro all days of my life, neither as Harold. And I would keep, as one of these young people say, I will stay in my lane. Whatever is my lane, I will stay in that lane. But really and truly, I am not, I admire Reds Pereira. How many Reds continues to, I get an email from Reds every day. I try to respond to it. So that to me is the essence of life. Trying to keep as fit as you can, managing your resources, and trying to be, to me, as genuine a person in your community or the people around. You know, as you get older, you realize that you can't fix anything. You could maybe help to improve it, but you can't fix anything. You could help to improve things, but you can't fix it because another generation will come and tell you it should be this way. So you just have to, just recognize, Mike, that is it. So that's my whole philosophy. Mike, I am not thinking about stop writing sports. Not at all. I get up in the morning after prayers. The first thing I go on is the BBC. Well, I must tell you, I must admit that I have sort of given up on local radio. I sort of tune into the one in St. Patrick's because that's the only one that covers sports. That is Andrew Donald's station. Covers sports, and let's put it this way, as it happens. I mean, the others really and truly is a sad chapter of where we came from to where we are. I mean, you're listening to the midday news and you're hearing that West Indies will play some match and the match finished already. I mean, you ask yourself, sometimes I ask myself, where are the managers and the news directors? I mean, in my time, you won't be, you won't exist unless you want to change. But you can't put that on the radio. There are people who are, they listen for these things, and you have to have respect and appreciation and value the attention they give to your station.
Anthony DeRiggs, Ray, is it fair to say that many young people these days are not interested in some of the sports you mentioned? How many of them rush to the playing fields on afternoons to play games these days when they have their cell phones to chat with friends on Facebook, etc., or social media? What can be done to pull their interest in traditional sports? Just ask it.
Well, Anthony, Happy New Year to you, one of the great writers that I try to steal a quote or two from. I try to give recognition to where I take it, but when I forget sometimes, I really want to see how much I appreciate your writing. Tony, I don't think that most of the schools have games teachers, as in your days. I keep in touch with Victor Loa daily, in fact. We send morning greetings and prayers and what have you. And we recently opened a chart of former table tennis players, Dr. Garth George, Ian Ferguson, Wendell Thomas, a whole group of guys in there. And it's a wonderful chart, and Dennis Thomas. And they were going back to the days of the hostel and the days of the masters at GBSS and so forth. I never went there. But the point I'm making, if you have teachers and you have games teachers who are fascinated by sports, who are passionate as like Michael Bascom, Harold Paisidi for West Indies cricket, and like the president of the Carnage Republic, you certainly will have people who will be acculturated in that spirit. But look, I mean, again, I don't want to knock anybody, but I remember Job Alexander in SAS, Eugene Games Master. I mean, you couldn't find a more passionate person than Job. Yes, even though there were no cell phones, but I'm saying even though there might have been cell phones, people as Joe, they were so committed to sports that they would have had people doing both, loving sports, loving the cell phone. There, that is not there because to me, again, I won't call any school, but you look at a road race. I mean, you have to ask yourself, amount of fat children along the roadside. Fat, fat, fat. 12 years, 15 years, 20 years. That has nothing to do. Some of that's not, in many other cases, it is not a generic. It is people who just eat too much. Their parents keep them inside. They stick in front of the television and they eat all that is wrong. And, we then cost the government, we cost the Ministry of Health because we went to the hospital and too many are out there, too many fat people, so they can't work on them at the same time.
Yeah, and just to stick a point on that, that's just stick a point on that. I think there was a report regarding the obesity in Grenada among young people in particular, and I think that is what you're referring to, and all has to do with lack of exercise and things like that. So,
yeah. So I'm saying, Mike, look, there are people like Naka, again, I have to call his name in Goa, Anthony Benjamin, wonderful. I think he would be a great sport leader. These fellas, look, sometime, and I want to wish Joman very well. In fact, I should call him. I have not gone to see him since the start of the year. I went in December and before that. I go every month. But Joman absent from the carnage, whether you like it or not, is the biggest blow, I think, to basketball. I mean, Joman used to have under 12, under 15, under 18. I haven't seen anything happen on the carnage with German absence in recent times. So again, whatever shortcomings German may have had, I can't think of somebody else who I could pinpoint and replace him. He was on the carnage in the basketball court, kept it clean, managed it. I don't know he got a salary, but his passion for it was overwhelming. And again, I would say to the Ministry of Education, yes, you want to have physical education teachers who are well qualified, and that must be the prerequisite. But another equal to that prerequisite must be whether or not you have that passion for sport. And that will manifest itself, just like how it is manifested in people like Bascom and Paisidi and Toro, who have rained under lightning, find time to see what West Indies cricket is lacking or wanting or take interest in it. I mean, sometimes you ask yourself, you look at Tanti and you see nobody there. I mean, think about Vida era, Mrs. Pilgrim era, convent. And then there was Cynthia McIntyre. She died a while ago, who was in high school. I mean, they persuaded students to be part of sport. They persuaded students. I'm not seeing that now. Don't tell me a school with 800 people. All you're finding are people who like cell phones. All you're finding are people getting fat. No, I mean, we have to begin to do better than that. I mean, even with principals, I usually ask, when Mr. the PBC principal,
Jeremiah.
when he leaves, I ask him, Mr. Fellas, what do you think intercall going to be like? I see that to Ashby and him every day. See, because I'm not sure I'm seeing, like when you had Mrs. Mason Francis, you had Ashby. I mean, you had Brother George, you had McDonald College, you had SAS. You had a network around the country of passionate principals. I am not seeing that today. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are people like Carl Andal who are there around, but I am not seeing enough of these people. Mr. Glean, what's his name from St. Patrick's?
Neville Glean.
Yeah. So, yes, we have games teachers, but do we have that caliber of people? And we have to try to find them or create the environment where some will emerge.
Ray, for the next few minutes, we have just a few more minutes. I know because, as we said, Ray is retired for some, but he still gets involved in sports. Probably Ray has table tennis, some sporting event that he wants to participate in later on this afternoon. Is that so, Ray?
Well, I can tell you when I finish with you at 4:30, well, take a half an hour rest, then I'm down to the public workers until about 9 tonight.
Yeah.
There are enough veterans who will be there. So there will be about 4 hours.
Yeah.
I've been telling you, I'm 161 pounds for the last 27 years. Yep.
Wow.
The clothes that I used to, what you call it? Well, let's call it to christen Ray Jr. fits me perfectly still. No. Seriously. Yeah. And he's 25 years old now.
Yeah.
So I have clothes from 25 years ago. No, but Mike, in all seriousness, we need to find people got to give greater value to sport. I mean, you just have to picture what Kirani and James is. I mean, Kirani James is the greatest symbol we have in Grenada today. I was, the group in Dubai. I happened to be in Dubai in, I think, 2017 or somewhere around there. And, well, the protocol people know about Grenada. But the ordinary man and woman who I encountered, they want to know where the hell is this place. And I just imagine, I'm going to say Kirani James and the 400 meters. And then they understand which part of the world that I come from. They ain't no calypso, no revolution, nothing. They remembered vividly that boy from the Grenada beating an American. So I usually say to people, if you can continue to produce talents of that nature, your tourism product, as how Barbados and Antigua, tourism Barbados at one point was cricket because of the Sir Gary Sobers. So many great players emerged. So the English became so familiar with them that they wanted to see, what are we eating? What are we doing? So I would hope that, I know the Prime Minister is passionate about sport, but I hope we certainly find more people in government leadership with that same tenacity, because I'm not seeing, to be frank with you, I'm not seeing enough. I'm in Paralympics, and I say to people every day, it is a sport that we can develop in Grenada. We have so many young people who are now with one leg or a arm because everybody bouncing up every day, accident, so we become handicapped or disabled, unwillingly. And you will see them, and a year after, you wonder who that person is, 300 pounds. So sometimes I say to people, well, look, rifle shooting, which is in Grenada now, it doesn't cost anything. If you have one leg, you still have two arms, you can shoot. But you seemingly don't have a population that is motivated to take a physically challenged person to complete table tennis, because you could sit on a wheelchair and play, or to get into rifle shooting, or to get in some sports that can be adjusted to your disability. Yeah. So to me, Michael, we need a more holistic approach to the development of sports. I compliment Aishana every day because she was one of the brave female who, on her own, say, look, let me take part in international games in Grenada and compete. She did it on her own. Remember, she has one arm. So parents, I am saying to parents, we have to begin to develop everybody, not just, the few who come forward, but motivate those who are home to be part of that athletic development and create this healthy environment that we wouldn't crowd the hospital and be cussing the ministry, cussing the government. And the government can't solve it because they're not getting you fat. They could only employ so many doctors, and doctors could only attend to one patient at a time. And your sickness perhaps determine how long a doctor and nurse will be with you. So the best thing is to try to keep healthy.
Some comments here as we wrap up. Ray, the poison of politics disguised as passion slowly displaced us in sports ICU, which Clev is saying is incompetent cushion of uselessness. We have to change that. Ray, why I thought it was Uncle in White when Redmond served him them slow balls to slam in style. And um, Lincoln says, Ray, you have to mention how you got your start from Uncle Gary taking our tax money and pumping it into the Granans Progressive Youth Organization, PYO. PYO, with Uncle's backing, was the best organized sports club in Grenada, producing talents like Ray and Fly and late Narika McIntyre. Ray will come back on that. Claire says, Rupert Big Bear Williams, Tantine Soft Shoe. He did it alone. Charlie Hood, Old Trafford. Stop traffic in Tantine. By the way, we couldn't get fat on the run. Lincoln Deputy says, Ken Joseph is one man Ray cannot beat in tennis. And then he says, Ray, did you mention Morris Bishop? I know you are the old Garyite, but you would have mentioned Morris, man.
Well, I could totally remember the days of what you call it, emulation in Radio Free Grenada. And I said to people, when they had the emulation, sometimes I will not stay. And I remember I was in Burge Grove playing table tennis, coming down with a bus, and they had emulation. And Bishop was Minister of Information, Prime Minister. He was handing out the awards and so on. And then he on the radio, he asking, where's Ray Roberts? And I get frightened. I say, I wonder what I do. Man say, look, I listen to news, I listen to sport. He said, I want to compliment this man because I get sports from Belal, Kalaloo, villages that I normally will not hear or think about. He said, I want to salute this man. So when I came down, I mean, fellas were giving me, they say, boy, the Prime Minister gave a lot of credit. So that was one positive I remember from Radio Free Grenada era. That was a real positive for me, a real encouragement for me. And remember also Sister Phyllis Court, when Grenada was going to play Guyana. She said, well, Brother Ray, you have to go with the team. I said, Sister Court, I can't make that. You have Reds, you have Stanley Moore, all these fellas there. I can't. She said, Brother Ray, you're in the wrong walk. I said, Sister Court. She said, well, if you don't want to get to the big league to represent us, you have to go to another job. And that's the first actual break I get in 79 to go to Ghana. And when I did commentary there with the Reds and Boozer Thomas and Stanley Moore, the next day they asked me to come back in. And that was, as I said, fellas, that's the first time I met Reds. And we have continued that friendship from 79 to now. Yeah, but Uncle was another guy who we can't ignore in sports. I mean, we used to, what do you call it? Not Easter. The show they had in True Blue. They had a big Carry Festa like in True Blue, and they built a tennis court and everything there. We in Granans used to go down there and play. Fly was the kind of coach. And Gary saw us there and he said, who are these people? They said they are from Granans, some McIntyres and so forth. He said, well, we need a tennis court in Granans. And that's how that tennis court, basketball court came in 73, 74, 75. Because he was amazed that we, as he said, were that talented. In those days, I mean, it was Richmond Hill tennis, and Fly and Marvo went there and played very well. And Fly made a national team actually. Well, let me give a joke because Scarallo said from the basketball team, there was Kenneth St. John, the late Kenneth St. John. He was the best basketballer in Granada. So Gary said to the Basketball Association, police and them, they were going to Dominica to play in the Windward Island, that you have to pick this guy. So Scarra said to me, Ray, nobody wanted to tell Sir Eric, that is not how you pick a team. So, because everybody, well, he was supportive of sports, but you don't want to tell him players are not picked from community. They are picked on their performance. So he said they picked the 10 players. Kenneth can't make the team. So you say, they reached in the airport now, and they didn't have enough money to pay for accommodation in Dominica, because Dominica accommodation only 10 people. So they called Sir Eric. Sir Eric said, that's not a problem. He called somebody in Grenville. He says, Mr. Ferranlo will call you, Scarra will call you. You give him how much he asked for. He said, about $1,000. He said, in those days, $1,000 in 75 There's a lot of money. So you see, Kenneth went on the team, but he couldn't play because he wasn't good enough. But that was how involved Gary was in sports, whether it was politics or not. I mean, for us England, as you notice, we still have a court where people play.
I think you're referring to Expo 69, right?
Expo 69, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, Expo 69.
Yeah,
it was something that gave Gary some sort of international significance.
Yeah,
the hosting of Expo 69.
Yeah, man.
Cleb says only a genius like him would have eyes for Carifta cottages to compete with the wallet of hotels. Ray, so we get ready to wrap up. Let me just, I had a comment here from Sebastian Steele Karaku, the boxing coach. He says, Boxing Association of Grenada President Neil Roberts and his executive members have abandoned the general membership of the association 10 months since assuming the responsibility of the association. While the boxers and the sport of boxing continue to suffer under a failed leadership, he says, two important tournaments are in the horizon: the AMBC Boxing Championship in Ecuador in March and Commonwealth Games in July. No mention of these tournaments to the membership. And I have news that we have some athletes who are actually competing today in Jamaica, some high school athletes. Your good friend, Kelvin Hector, that's Coco Joe. Yeah. He is saying that Shavin Hector, his son actually, Christian Gabriel, that's Coco Shot, sorry. Shavin Hector, Christian Gabriel, Kyle Olivier, and then there's Jaden Tika in the throws. They're actually participating in the J3A's Puma Development Series Meet 1. So we have a number of young athletes who are attending high school in Jamaica, and they are competing today as well. So that's something you can look forward to, following the exploits of our young athletes who are now in Jamaica. We have seen now a number of our athletes, when they finish high school, they go to Jamaica and compete in the Jamaica school competitions. No doubt they're into the advanced stage, which is the sixth form, most likely the sixth form. And we have seen some of these athletes move on, getting scholarships to colleges in Jamaica. Well, we have the University of the West Indies, and they have there are two other colleges. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, and then also into the professional clubs like MVP and Racers, and also colleges in the US as well. We want to congratulate them for that initiative as well. Ray, some comments as you wrap up?
Well, Mike, I would certainly want to encourage the boxing fraternity to see the bigger picture, because I have great admiration for the work done in Karaku. I think it's something that they are doing that could produce a medalist at the highest level, and we have to support them. I would hope that President Roberts and his team recognize that there is no need for division. There is need for the olive branch. Let what happened be bygone, and I would hope that the two sides would, one or the other, initiate a dialogue, because at the end of it, the only ones who will suffer are the athletes of today. I mean, those who are retired and those who are president and whatever they are. I mean, your only glory is to see the young ones emerge. So I would hope that Coach and the others who, Mr. Adams is my very good friend. I certainly would have engaged.
Davis Adams, right?
Yeah, that's my very good friend. I have a lot of admiration for him. I consider him one of the better principals in primary schools in Grenada, very hardworking. So I would hope that they can initiate some kind of talking and let bygone be bygone. Because boxing, to me, like volleyball, these are two sports, athletics, where individually talent can emerge. I mean, imagine you find a volleyballer in beach volleyball, 6'8", who is very athletic, very robust. It is a possibility that you could put a two-man team together and do something well. Yeah. The same thing with boxing. Bonnie Wilson threw one big punch. I was there in 1984. and the number 3 ranked boxer in the world was lying on the carpet. So I think, something should be initiated that would bring peace. Well, Michael, thanks for the opportunity. Let me say to you that you seem to be the only local one that keeps an active sports program, a sports program that we can learn from and highlight the talents that are emerging and remember those who contributed. So let me thank you and Toro. I know Toro is the president of the Caribbean Republic. I hope Clef talk to him so I can get, if not a citizenship by investment, but some kind of honorary position. Harold, I'm sure you want the same. And you, Eugene, good to hear you, good to see you. Sam and others, always a privilege, Anthony, to be part of this experience with Michael and to be around with you and others. So God bless and do have a wonderful 2022.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ray. Thank you very much, folks. And just to let you know also that Navio John is also competing in Kansas today. That will be indoor racing on the junior college. So we'll have some information in the next few days. Well, on our next program, or even before that, we'll post some information regarding all our athletes, because this is the time when, especially in the indoor championships, our college athletes are competing, and then the outdoors, mainly in the Caribbean, Jamaica to be exact. Clef is saying COVID or no COVID, bring back intercall. Certainly, as Ray said in the start, he will hope that there's some form of competition, school-based competition, whether it's secondary, primary, whatever, for 2022. Thank you very much, folks, all of you, Clef, Toro, Harold, Tony Julian, Tony the Riggs, we had Leslie McQueen early on, Edwin Sam from Jersey. I know it's very cold in New Jersey this weekend, and all of other friends, Eugene Lecquish, as I said, and Rudian in Toronto. I know you're still covered with snow, and folks, thank you very much for being part of our program. The invitation is yours to join me again on Thursday. Will be our next program, where we will be, I will let you know during the week what will be, who will be our guests and what we'll be discussing. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ray, for being on our program. Folks, let me see. Yeah, back to Denver in Colorado. And looking forward to your continued support for the program in terms of viewing. And, as we continue to discuss sports. It was a wonderful experience with Ray. As usual, once Ray is on the program, he brings a lot in terms of this discussion. As Ray said earlier, folks, Conrad Francis is the new president of the Grenada Athletic Association. He was elected, I think he said, unopposed and in absentia, because Conrad is not in the island, and he's now the new president of the Grenada Athletic Association. The annual general meeting was held earlier on Saturday in St. George's, at the Olympic House rather hosted it. So he's the new president. And this follows the resignation of Mr. Charlie George, who was the president of the Athletic Association. Mr. Aaron Moses was the acting president. And from what Ray is saying, I believe that Conrad was elected unopposed to the Grenada Athletic Association as its new president. Folks, Roger, I'll have to watch your recording version. Yes, you are late. Thank you very much, folks, and thank you for being part of our program once again. It has always been a pleasure, and I want to thank you for being a company, as usual on our Saturday. Thank you very much, and enjoy the weekend.